Have you ever noticed how the world applauds softness, yet secretly sharpens its knives for the first sign of exposed flesh? You were told that compassion is the currency of civilized society, that kindness breeds loyalty, that the gentle inherit the earth. But step outside the safety of slogans and watch what really thrives in the wild. Teeth, claws, and cold calculations disguised by smiles. Machiavelli understood what our comfort-drunk culture refuses to admit. Kindness doesn't create allies. It creates dependence. And every dependent drains you drop by precious drop until there's nothing left but a hollow shell applauded for its virtue. Look around. How many people celebrate your empathy while quietly plotting to leverage it? How many crises have you solved for friends who never intended to solve anything for themselves? Each time you step in to rescue, you teach them a terrible lesson, that your strength exists to compensate for their weakness, and the infection spreads. The first time you turn the other cheek, it feels heroic. The third time, it feels expected. By the 10th time, you are no longer a person. They see you as a conveniently soft pillow on which to rest their failures. Compassion is a contagion. Pass it carelessly, and soon you're surrounded by the sick, coughing up excuses, begging you to breathe for them because breathing is too hard. Meanwhile, you choke on their reliance, applauded by the crowd for your self-sacrifice. Until one day you wake up and realize your lungs were the only ones keeping the circus alive. This is the secret price of mercy. Every act of pity recruits new hands to drag you down. But here is the darker twist. Once the world identifies you as infinitely forgiving, you are no longer respected. You are catalogued as prey. In the predator's ledger, a gentle heart is a glowing neon sign that reads, "Easy harvest." They don't hate you, they simply estimate the yield. And they will return again and again, each visit carving away another slice of your spirit, until even your private thoughts tremble under the weight of other people's expectations. You thought you were building loyalty. You are actually importing parasites. Ask yourself, when compassion costs you your boundaries, is it still compassion, or is it self-betrayal wearing a philanthropic mask? Machiavelli would laugh at our modern sermons on unconditional empathy. He'd whisper, "True loyalty is forged by necessity, not charity." Help a man who refuses to help himself, and he will learn two things: that failure is risk-free, and that you are the safety net. At that moment, your mercy becomes a shackle, both for him and for you. He is chained to dependency. You are chained to his demands. And in a kingdom of chained souls, no one moves forward. The chain rattles loudest in the stillness of night, when you stare at the ceiling and wonder why your own dreams suffocate while everyone else sleeps soundly on the bed you built for them. So, do you dare slash those chains? Do you possess the iron will to transform compassion into calculated selection, helping only those who bleed for their own ascent, refusing the plea of those who merely thirst for your energy? Kindness without discernment is not saintliness, it's surrender disguised as virtue. And surrender, Machiavelli warns, is the prelude to obliteration. The wolves are already sniffing at your door, savoring the aroma of your hesitations. Tonight, they test the lock. Tomorrow, they walk right in, escorted by your own open arms. Because here is the grim arithmetic. Every second you spend nursing other people's weaknesses is a second you forfeit sharpening your own strength. And the gap grows. While you bake comfort into the world, someone else is forging weapons out of cold resolve. When the clash comes, and it will come, you will bring pillows to a battlefield. They will bring blades. History will not remember the softness of your heart. It will only remember the depth of your wounds, but maybe you still cling to the fairy tale that trust will save you. You picture alliances sealed by gentle words, bonds stronger than steel because you simply believe in people. Yet belief is a luxury minted in fairy tales, not in kingdoms built on sweat and fear. Stand in any royal court, ancient or modern, and you will find daggers hidden behind every velvet sleeve, promises polished like mirrors to blind the naive, and a silent agreement that the first to blink becomes the first to bleed. Machiavelli teaches a ruthless truth. The softer your faith in others, the sharper their appetite to exploit it. Trust is a banquet invitation, written in your own blood, hand-delivered to those who hunger for shortcuts. They arrive smiling, tipping invisible hats, reciting vows of loyalty while measuring the weight of your crown. And the moment you turn your back, they test how easily it slips from your head. History's corridors echo with the footsteps of emperors who dared to trust. Caesar greeting Brutus, Louis XVI believing the National Assembly, countless CEOs shaking hand with partners who smiled for photographs while drafting the hostile takeover. The pattern is older than language. Betrayals bloom where faith is watered too freely. Consider your own life. How many secrets have you whispered into safe ears that later broadcast them as ammunition? How many favors have you granted to people who vanished the moment repayment was due? Each act of unwarranted trust is a scar you carve on your future self. And scars, despite their numbness, remember. They remember that every open door is also an exit for your power. They remember that every extended hand might conceal a blade. They whisper warnings in the late hours when your mind replays conversations, noticing the micro-hesitations you ignored at the time. Those warnings are not paranoia. They are ancestral wisdom, voices of survivors urging caution. But the culture of comfort calls this mindset toxic. They say, if you can't trust, you can't love. What they really mean is, remain defenseless so we can feel safe. They weaponize shame to keep you pliable. Meanwhile, they insure themselves with contracts, NDAs, prenuptial agreements, proof that even the loudest evangelists of unconditional trust practice strict conditionality when their own assets are on the line. They know the game, they simply don't want you to play it. So how do you navigate this minefield without hardening into total isolation? Machiavelli offers a formula. Distrust by default, verify by action. Allow people the opportunity to prove themselves, but never the privilege of your blind faith. Observe how they handle small temptations before granting them access to larger ones. Study how they speak about absent friends. That is how they will speak about you once you leave the room. Set tests. Create boundaries. Make betrayal costly enough that loyalty becomes the rational choice. In this calculus, trust is no longer a gamble. It's an earned currency, backed by the gold of demonstrated integrity. Yet even earned trust must be audited. Circumstances change. Loyalty can expire. The ally who bled beside you today may see fresher rewards on another battlefield tomorrow. Do not hate them for it. Account for it. Keep contingencies hidden beneath your cloak. Diversify alliances so no single traitor can topple your throne. Rotate confidences so no secret has all the keys. Remember, you do not control other hearts, only your borders. Fortify them. Because when the day inevitably arrives, the day a friendly smile fractures into a predator's grin, you will not ask, how could they? You will already know. You will watch their betrayal unfold with a cold clarity because you saw the warning signs flicker months ago and you prepared. In that moment, your enemies will learn that betrayal cuts both ways and that the soft target they expected was steel wrapped in polite silence. Trust, then, is not abolished. It is distilled, refined into a potent elixir administered by the drop, never by the gallon, and each scarce drop commands a higher price. Respect, reciprocity, vigilance. Dispense it wisely, and even wolves tread lightly. Dispense it freely, and you will be devoured before dawn. Have you ever walked through a crowded room and felt invisible fingers assessing you casually, clinically, like a jeweler testing glass for fractures? That subtle tilt of the head as someone sizes up your posture, that fleeting smirk when you apologize for taking up space, those are the micro-predations of daily life. Softness, Machiavelli warns, isn't simply tolerated. It advertises itself. It's a lighthouse beacon, except instead of guiding ships to safety, it guides hunters to harbor. Every gentle gesture broadcasts an unspoken message. I won't bite back. And predators, whether they wear business suits, wedding rings, or childhood friendships, decode that message instantly. Watch the corporate ladder. The chronic accommodator is always the first to inherit urgent tasks nobody else wants. In relationships, the endlessly forgiving partner becomes the emotional dumping ground. On social media, polite disagreement invites a mob more vicious than open hostility. Predators target the gentle because fear of reprisals is the only language they respect. And softness speaks in whispers. Even infants grasp this truth. In a playground, the timid child's toy is the easiest to steal. Evolution wired our brains to sniff out asymmetric power like wolves scent blood on snow. You may protest, but I don't live in a jungle. Yes, you do. Only the vines are made of bureaucracy, and the claws are dressed as compliments. Machiavelli wrote of principates and citadels, but the mechanics are identical on Slack channels and dinner tables. His timeless rule: men injure either from fear or hate. If you elicit neither, if you radiate safe predictability, then every opportunist will experiment with how far they can bend you before you finally splinter. They'll start small, a harmless joke at your expense, a tiny deadline extension, a favor returned later. Each success emboldens the next trial, until eventually they are excavating entire months from your life, confident you'll smile as the shovel bites deeper. And here lies the sinister twist. Society often rewards the victim for being devoured. You'll be praised as a team player, a nice guy, an understanding partner. These titles are not accolades. They are cautionary labels posted for other predators. The gate is open, the dog is asleep. Meanwhile, your resentment simmers underground, poisoning your own psyche. And when, if you finally explode, they'll call you irrational, blind to the ledger of unspoken debts you've been forced to carry. So what does resistance look like? It is not becoming a permanent berserker. Chaotic aggression merely invites stronger predators. Resistance begins with cultivating an edge, visible enough to be respected, restrained enough to be controlled. It's the calm refusal to accept a last-minute favor that derails your weekend. It's the unblinking silence after someone's harmless insult, forcing them to confront the weight of their words. It's the steady eye contact that communicates, I am measuring you too. Such moments don't require shouting. They require unbendable presence. Predators instinctively recalculate when prey stares back with steel. Machiavelli would advise staging small demonstrations of consequence. Let one opportunist feel the sting of your boundary, and the rest will think twice. Humans are storytellers. They trade cautionary tales faster than currency. A single, well-timed pushback circulates like wildfire, erecting invisible fences around your dignity. Soon your name carries a subtle gravity, and gravity repels scavengers. Yet balance is crucial. Overcompensation, constant hostility, exhausts resources and attracts coalitions of enemies. The art lies in cultivating a reputation rather than waging perpetual battles. A reputation of controlled potency makes people police themselves in your presence. You become the unpredictable variable in their calculations, and predators, above all else, hate uncertainty. Ask yourself, where have you replaced boundaries with apologies? Which debts are you paying that others accrued? The audit is painful, but every forgiven trespass is a mortgage on your future strength. Tear up the false agreement that your softness protects harmony. It only postpones conflict until you're too depleted to win. Reject the lure of universal approval. Machiavelli reminds us that a prince who tries to be loved by all must surrender power to all. Better to be respected by many, feared by a few, and owned by none. Because sooner or later the quiet soul must choose: remain a pasture fattened for harvest, or evolve into terrain too rugged for easy conquest. The wolves will still wander your borders, but they'll move on when they sense the rocks beneath the grass. Refuse to be pasture, and the next illusion shatters. That leadership is just amplified kindness. Modern sermons paint authority as a nurturing embrace, a gentle shepherd guiding grateful flocks. But Machiavelli slices through that pastel dream. Once the flock senses your need to be loved, they trample the pasture and the shepherd alike. Pity, he warns, is a perfume that evaporates into rot. The instant you publicly cradle someone's failures, you invite every eye to measure how far your mercy can be stretched. And mercy, once stretched, becomes rope around your own neck. Think of any classroom where the nice teacher begs for attention. The students giggle, test limits, turn the room into chaos because pity devalues authority. Children instinctively understand what nations forget. Power that apologizes for existing is no power at all. The same dynamic corrodes boardrooms where a CEO obsessed with being relatable waves deadlines to spare feelings, only to trigger a festival of missed targets blamed on unclear expectations. Soldiers crumble under captains who hesitate at the critical order. Empires crumble under rulers who tearfully justify taxation as a moral burden they personally regret. Once your followers believe you seek their emotional approval, they stop fearing the consequences of your disappointment. They see no throne, only a therapist's couch. Yet pity is seductive. It disguises itself as ethical leadership. It whispers, "Show them you care." Caring is vital, but must be chiseled, not sentimental. Care is the steel scaffold that keeps standards sky high, not the cushion that softens every landing. When people stumble, you may extend a hand, yes, but never lower the mountain. True leadership tasks the fallen with climbing again, stronger, wiser, that is the gift. Anything else is counterfeit compassion that steals their chance to rise and steals your right to be trusted as the summit's guardian. You doubt? Recall every historical revolt sparked by a monarch's benevolence mistaken for weakness. Tsar Nicholas II's partial reforms only whetted revolutionary appetites. Charles I's concessions emboldened Parliament's blade. Even in fiction, Ned Stark's honorable leniency condemns him to a traitor's block. These narratives converge on one grim equation. When authority bends too softly, ambition grows teeth. So audit your own domain. Where has your leadership blurred into pity? Which underperformer still occupies a seat you're too merciful to reassign? Which friend repeatedly violates boundaries because you understand their situation? Each pity-laden exemption becomes a billboard announcing that rules are negotiable. And rules that can be negotiated are no rules at all. They are invitations to bargain for ever greater leniency, until the structure collapses under exceptions. Machiavelli prescribes a bracing remedy: hold standards high, penalties firm, praise rare and meaningful. Each consequence must be swift, proportionate, publicly recognized, not to humiliate, but to memorialize the line no one crosses twice. This ritual broadcasts certainty. Certainty breeds stability. Stability breeds respect. The people may grumble at harshness in the moment, yet they will cling to you when storms rage, because they know the fortress of your resolve will not crumble in the wind. Do not confuse this with cruelty. Cruelty seeks pain for pleasure. Discipline seeks excellence. Between those poles stretches the razor on which leaders walk. Your blade must be sharp enough to cut excuses, yet precise enough to avoid unnecessary wounds. Wielded correctly, even those you penalize will later acknowledge the justice of your hand, because the lesson uplifts them and the meritocracy protects all. Ask yourself now, are you willing to endure the discomfort of being too strict in a world addicted to softness? Can you watch faces twist in temporary resentment while knowing their long-term respect grows silently beneath the surface? If not, step aside. Someone harder will claim the helm. The seas are roughening. Crews rally behind captains who do not flinch at waves. Pity may win applause in peace, but authority forged of backbone survives the war that always comes. Strength administered with measured fairness becomes a legend. Softness patched with pity becomes a cautionary tale. Every revolution begins as a poem. Soft verses praising liberty. Fragrant promises of equality. Yet beneath that melody lies the drumbeat of envy. Machiavelli knew that idealism is the spark most dangerous to rulers precisely because it looks harmless. It arrives in silk robes, quoting virtue, but it leaves wrapped in smoke and bayonets. The moment you proclaim a pure ideal, unblemished justice, universal kindness, utopian equality, you draw a map of everything your regime is not. Suddenly, every hardship becomes an outrage, every compromise proof of corruption. The mob no longer measures progress, it measures perfection, and perfection never arrives. Look to Florence itself. Savonarola's bonfire of the vanities ignited with sermons about piety and purification. Citizens who once adored art turned overnight into torchbearers for holy fury, burning paintings, jewels, even books, because any beauty short of heavenly was branded decadent. The same city that crowned culture chopped its own roots in the name of purity. Fast forward centuries, Robespierre's Republic of Virtue bleeds Paris under the guillotine. Mao's Cultural Revolution pits children against parents in pursuit of ideological cleanliness. Digital crusaders cancel careers at the click of a hashtag, demanding spotless histories in a world built on human flaws. The pattern endures. Ideals sharpen resentment into weapons. Why? Because pure ideals require pure people, and no one fits the mold. The prophet preaches perfection, the crowds chant along, and suddenly every leader looks tarnished, especially if they once acknowledged reality's compromises. So the mob overturns the throne, expecting paradise, only to discover governing is messy, trade-offs inevitable, and new leaders bleed the same color. Disillusionment breeds fresh rage, and the cycle feeds itself. Idealism is a fire with infinite appetite. It devours yesterday's heroes to light tomorrow's slogans. Perhaps you fancy yourself safe because you too trumpet noble causes. You post virtues on social feeds, wear causes on t-shirts, kneel with approved hashtags. Understand, the loudest virtue now becomes tomorrow's incriminating evidence when the purity bar ratchets higher. One day they will demand proof you were always enlightened, that you never laughed at a forbidden joke, never harbored an unfiltered thought. In that interrogation, nuance is heresy. Apologies are confessions. Silence is guilt. Idealism arms every zealot with a loaded question: are you perfect? And while you stutter for words, they pull the trigger of public condemnation. Machiavelli's antidote: embrace imperfection openly, rule with pragmatic transparency, defeat utopian fantasies before they metastasize. If people see you wrestle openly with trade-offs, balancing order against liberty, mercy against security, they cannot be seduced by charlatans promising flawless worlds. Show them the gears of governance, the cost ledger of every free gift, the unseen blood price of every miracle. Strip ideals of their golden haze and expose the rust underneath. When citizens taste reality early, they build antibodies against demagogues. Yet this strategy requires courage, because realism rarely thrills crowds. You must withstand boos, memes, downvotes from those addicted to sugar-coated futures. You must survive the charm offensive of rival influences, peddling easy answers, and you must accept the grueling burden of being the villain in someone else's heroic narrative, because restraint always looks cruel to the impatient. But remember, it is better to be the sober architect of gradual progress than the celebrated icon of a purity cult that devours itself. Examine your own circle. Which voices demand spotless consistency? Who flaunts moral grandstanding while ignoring pragmatic costs? These zealots are the matchsticks. Keep them ne'er unchecked, and one day their sparks ignite institutional tinder you didn't realize was dry. Quarantine the fantasy before it spreads. Offer them seats at the table of reality, where numbers, logistics, and human nature govern every choice. Some will adapt. Ideologues will storm out. Let them. Gravity will drag their Icarus wings to ground, and for yourself, guard against the seductive rush of righteous absolutes. The moment you declare an ironclad principle, ask, what are its unintended casualties? Which innocent habit becomes sin? Which ally becomes enemy? Which tomorrow will find me a hypocrite? Humility, that most unglamorous virtue, is the shield against self-righteous implosions. Embrace it, and revolutions may snarl, but find no easy myth to wield against you. Because in the end, the harsh geometry of power remains. Ideals inspire, but imperfect hands must build the world. Forget this, and you hand zealots a guillotine engraved with your guiding creed. Remember it, and you build institutions sturdy enough to channel passion without drowning in its flood. So choose. Will you feed the wildfire of perfect dreams, or will you forge the tempered steel of resilient reality? The future will praise whichever choice keeps civilization, however flawed, still standing when the slogans fade. So here we are, at the razor's edge where all 5 warnings converge. You have seen how compassion mutates into contagion, how trust becomes betrayal's down payment, how softness flashes like bait to predators, how pity rots a throne, and how idealism can crown and behead in the same breath. These are not separate lessons. They are the 5 fangs of one ancient beast. Weakness, and weakness, no matter how it smiles, always sells your future for its comfort. Look at the fracture lines already webbing through your life, the unpaid favors, the boundary violations, the midnight texts that treat your time as communal property, the harmless compromises that now run like cracks across a mirror, distorting the person you meant to become. How many dreams have you postponed to cushion other people's failures? How many apologies have you whispered for merely enforcing standards? Softness is never a single act. It is a habit, one that trains spectators to harvest your energy and trains you to accept the downgrade. If you do nothing, if you cling to the lullaby that the universe rewards your perpetual forgiveness, tomorrow's betrayal is already walking toward you. Somewhere right now, a colleague is polishing your idea as their own. A friend is rehearsing why they can't repay the loan. A rival is drafting a story that paints you villain so they can inherit the crowd you built. The softness they smell isn't kindness. It's the scent of open doors. So what is the antidote? Steel. Not the cruelty of a tyrant, but the hardness of self-respect alloyed with strategic empathy. Compassion that requires reciprocity. Trust dispensed by performance. Softness balanced by an unmistakable edge. Pity replaced with disciplined mentorship. Help offered, never begged. Idealism tempered by the cold mathematics of reality. Picture blacksmithing. Each unapologetic no strikes the iron. Each enforced consequence quenches it. Each visible standard polishes the blade. Weapons rust if hidden in scabbards of self-doubt. Display your edge. Not by boasting, but by living a code so consistent, predators recalculate and retreat. A code that says, I will give, but never be drained. I will receive, but never be owned. I will lead, but never beg love. Let that code radiate from your eyes, your calendar, your posture. The parasites will wither, the opportunists will reroute. The worthy will step closer, drawn by gravity they can trust. Will this make life easier? Number. It makes life real. The lullabies fade, replaced by the hum of forging hammers and the distant growl of storms you can finally face. You will lose some acquaintances. Good. They were ballast. You will gain some enemies. Better. They are whetstones. You will stand heavier, harder, and when the next rupture rattles the world, you will feel it, but you will not break. Remember Machiavelli's whisper. Fortune favors the bold, but she serves the prepared. Boldness without preparation is recklessness. Preparation without boldness is stagnation. Unite them and you command the only kingdom that endures. Sovereignty over yourself. No tyrant can confiscate it. No mob can vote it away. No rival can counterfeit it. It is minted in private choices and spent in public consequence. So ask yourself, right now, in the silent furnace of this moment, are you done being soft? The decision you make after this video answers louder than any vow. Will you default to apology, or will you draw a line and hold it? History doesn't record intentions, it records actions, etched in scars and crowned in victories. When tomorrow's ledger opens, write the first entry in unbreakable ink. I forged myself, and the world felt the edge. Choose or be chosen for. Build the wall of steel, or be bricked into someone else's fortress. Either way the hammer falls. Better it falls by your hand. The soft stay broken, but the forged carve their own fate.